There are moments when you meet a person whose presence chills the air, though their words may seem harmless, even polite. You sense something deeper than personality, a vibration that disturbs your inner stillness. Rudolf Steiner once hinted that the devil does not appear with horns or fire, but through human beings who have allowed spiritual darkness to take root in their thoughts, feelings, and will. The devil, he said, can wear the face of reason, charm, or even benevolence, and if we do not awaken, we may serve him unknowingly. This is not about superstition or fear, it is about perception, the kind Steiner called spiritual sight, the ability to discern the hidden forces shaping the moral and emotional atmosphere around us. Evil, in its purest form, rarely acts openly. It infiltrates the ordinary, whispers through logic, disguises itself as progress or enlightenment. The greatest danger, Steiner warned, is not that the devil attacks us from the outside, but that he seduces us from within the human form, through another person, or even through ourselves. To understand this hidden drama is to awaken from the dream of appearances. It is to see that humanity stands between two great powers, one that hardens and chills, and one that inflates and deceives, and that our task is to hold the balance between them. By the end of this journey, you will not only recognize the 5 signs of the devil in human form, but also discover how awareness itself becomes your shield. For Steiner's wisdom does not invite fear. It calls us to see, and through seeing, to free ourselves. To understand what Steiner meant by the devil in human form, we must first look at the cosmic forces that weave through human destiny. He did not speak of a single demonic being who rules in opposition to God, but of 2 spiritual currents, Luciferic and Ahrimanic, that pull humanity away from its divine purpose. Lucifer lifts us too high into illusion and pride, while Ahriman drags us down into materialism and cold intellect. Between them stands the true human self, striving for balance, guided by the Christ impulse, the power of spiritual equilibrium. Steiner explained that both Lucifer and Ahriman are necessary in the grand design of evolution. They challenge human freedom. They tempt us so that we may awaken our inner strength and moral clarity. But when a person becomes completely possessed by one of these forces, when their soul aligns entirely with Ahriman's cold logic or Lucifer's seductive brilliance, that is when the devil in human form appears. Such a person may not look evil at all. They might appear intelligent, inspiring, even saintly. Yet, beneath the surface, every action they take subtly enslaves others, emotionally, intellectually, or spiritually. They distort truth not through open lies, but through polished half-truths. They charm, they persuade, they rationalize, all while serving forces that seek to extinguish human individuality and the living warmth of the soul. Steiner taught that our time, the modern technological age, is especially vulnerable to this Ahrimanic incarnation. The devil today hides not in dark rituals, but in systems of thought, in machinery that deadens the heart, in ideologies that promise efficiency while erasing spirit. To recognize this presence is not paranoia, it is preparation. For only awareness can pierce the mask that evil wears in our age of intellect. The first sign that you are dealing with the devil in human form, according to Steiner's spiritual insight, is the cold intellect of Ahriman. This is the kind of intelligence that dazzles the mind yet leaves the heart untouched. A brilliance that analyzes, calculates, and controls, but never truly understands. The Ahrimanic individual speaks with authority, logic, and precision. Their words seem irrefutable, their reasoning sharp as a blade, but behind it all there is no warmth, no compassion, no love. Steiner described this kind of soul as one that has allowed thinking to harden into stone. Ideas become weapons, and truth becomes an instrument of power. Such a person believes that everything, Even the human soul can be measured, managed, and mechanized. They see others not as living beings, but as functions within a greater system, tools to be optimized, manipulated, or discarded. Their mastery of intellect hides a deep emptiness, for Ahriman's cold breath freezes the stream of moral life. You may recognize this force in the world today, in institutions where efficiency replaces empathy, in technologies that reduce human thought to algorithms, in leaders whose brilliance masks a silent cruelty. When Ahriman lives through a human being, there is always a sense of lifeless perfection, of intelligence divorced from conscience. Steiner warned that this is how the devil first enters our experience, not through horror, but through admiration. We are drawn to the Ahrimanic mind because it promises clarity, order, and control. Yet the moment we surrender our discernment to such intellect, we lose something precious, the warmth of our own humanity. The devil's first disguise, then, is reason without love, the mind that shines yet casts no light. The second sign, Steiner reveals, is the seductive light of Lucifer, a brilliance that blinds rather than illuminates. While Ahriman freezes the soul with intellect, Lucifer burns it with illusion. The Luciferic individual radiates charm, confidence, and spiritual glamour. They speak of light, of higher truths, of freedom and transcendence. Yet every word circles back to themselves. Their spirituality is intoxicating because it feels divine, but its center is not the divine. It is the self. Steiner described Lucifer as the being who tempts humanity with premature enlightenment, the promise of wisdom without discipline, ecstasy without responsibility, beauty without love. In human form, this manifests as a person who believes they are a savior, a teacher above reproach, or a visionary misunderstood by the world. Their presence often evokes admiration, even devotion, for they shine with intensity. But that light is deceptive. It draws others not upward, but inward toward their orbit, feeding their vanity and separating them from true spiritual connection. Luciferic individuals can be found in every field, from false prophets who promise awakening to artists and thinkers who mistake inspiration for infallibility. They live in the illusion that emotion equals truth, and that feeling divine is the same as being divine. Yet, as Steiner warned, when the soul forgets humility, it becomes fertile soil for Lucifer's seed. This is why Steiner taught that authentic spiritual growth must always be balanced by self-knowledge and service. The true light does not dazzle or demand attention. It gently reveals. Where Lucifer reigns, there is brilliance, but no balance, passion, but no peace, love of light, but not of truth. And so, the second sign of the devil in human form is this radiant deception, the soul that shines outwardly yet secretly hungers for worship. The third sign that reveals the devil in human form, Steiner tells us, is the mockery of truth, the subtle twisting of what is sacred into something hollow, distorted, or self-serving. This is not the crude lie that can be easily exposed, but the half-truth that carries just enough light to conceal its shadow. The demonic mind does not destroy truth directly. It imitates it. It wraps falsehood in spiritual language, uses moral ideals for manipulation, and turns wisdom into spectacle. Steiner warned that such corruption of truth is one of the greatest dangers of our time. When truth loses its living essence, it becomes an idol, a concept to be used rather than a force to be lived. The devil in human form knows how to speak beautifully about goodness while secretly serving the opposite. They quote sacred words but drain them of power. They preach freedom yet sow dependency. Preach light, yet obscure it behind admiration for their own voice. You can often feel it before you understand it, a sense that the words are right, but the soul behind them is wrong. Steiner called this the Luciferic Ahrimanic alliance, when intellect and illusion join to enslave. It appears in false spiritual leaders, in media that claims to enlighten yet divides, and even in ourselves when we use ideas as shields against the discomfort of self-examination. Truth, for Steiner, was not a possession, but a being, living, dynamic, divine. When someone mocks truth, even unconsciously, they separate from that living source. And this separation is precisely what gives the devil his human voice. The third sign, then, is the corruption of truth, when words of light are spoken with a heart that has forgotten love. The fourth sign that you are facing the devil in human form is the absence of compassion, the quiet, chilling void where empathy should dwell. Steiner spoke of love as the very fabric of the cosmos, the force through which the divine reveals itself in the human heart. When love is absent, the soul loses its connection to the spiritual world, and in its place emerges something hollow, an imitation of feeling crafted only to deceive. The person possessed by this force may appear kind, may perform gestures of generosity or understanding, but their actions are calculated, not born of genuine care. Their compassion is mechanical, a mask designed to maintain control, gain admiration, or manipulate emotion. You can sense it when their help leaves you feeling smaller instead of stronger, indebted instead of uplifted. This is not love, it is strategy. Steiner explained that true compassion arises when the higher self recognizes the divine spark in another being. It is an act of seeing beyond appearances, of feeling another's suffering as one's own. But the Ahrimanic soul cannot feel this. Its heart is frozen, and luciferic pride makes empathy impossible. The devil in human form thus imitates love, but cannot live it. Their words about unity or kindness are empty vessels, resonant on the surface, but devoid of life within. Steiner also warned that modern civilization itself can encourage this loss of compassion. When human relationships are reduced to efficiency, performance, and profit, the warmth of the soul fades. Evil thrives in that coldness. And so, the fourth sign is not simply cruelty, but a deeper emptiness, a hollow kindness, a smile without warmth, a helping hand that never truly touches the heart. The fifth and final sign that Steiner reveals is the manipulation of fear and desire, the most powerful instruments through which the devil in human form bends others to his will. Fear and desire are the twin levers of the unawakened soul. One enslaves through threat, the other through temptation. When a person learns to command both, they become a vessel of domination, a human through whom spiritual darkness speaks softly, persuasively, and without mercy. Steiner warned that these forces are not merely psychological, they are spiritual energies. Fear separates us from our higher self, paralyzing the soul so that it cannot hear the voice of truth. Desire binds us to illusion, chaining our will to fleeting satisfactions. The devil's greatest art is to appear as savior in one moment and destroyer in the next, offering comfort while secretly deepening dependence. Such individuals often appear in positions of power, influence, or even mentorship. They sense the hidden insecurities of others and exploit them, promising safety, belonging, or enlightenment, but always in exchange for submission. In the modern world, this Ahrimanic power has woven itself into the very fabric of society, in media that feeds anxiety for profit, in politics that thrives on division, in technologies that predict and shape our desires before we know them. Steiner foresaw this age of manipulation, an era where invisible forces would guide humanity through fear and craving rather than conscience and freedom. To recognize this is not to despair, but to awaken. For the devil's power ends where awareness begins. When we face our own fears and desires with consciousness, they lose their grip, and the manipulator's strings fall away. The fifth sign, then, is mastery through fear and seduction, the quiet tyranny that rules not by force, but by fascination. After recognizing the five signs, Steiner directs our gaze inward. toward the spiritual counterforce that dissolves evil not through battle, but through awareness. Evil, he said, cannot be destroyed by hatred or punishment. It is transformed only by the light of consciousness. When we see darkness for what it is, without fear or fascination, its illusion loses power. This inner seeing is the beginning of freedom. Steiner taught that every human being carries a divine spark, the eye, which is the image of the eternal spirit. The devil in human form may obscure this truth, but he cannot erase it. Our task is to awaken that inner light through self-knowledge, meditation, and quiet moral reflection. The one who truly knows himself, his weaknesses, his temptations, his shadows, cannot be deceived for long by outer evil. For the moment we see the same seeds of darkness within, we become immune to their external form. This awakening begins in small acts, a moment of genuine listening, a decision to forgive, an effort to think truthfully even when it hurts. Each such act, Steiner said, strengthens the higher self, the part of us that can meet both Lucifer and Ahriman with calm discernment. The Christ impulse, the living balance between pride and coldness, awakens in those moments. To recognize evil in the world without becoming its mirror is the great art of spiritual maturity. Awareness is not detachment, it is participation with open eyes. The devil thrives in unconsciousness, but where the human being stands awake, filled with quiet courage, the adversary finds no foothold. Steiner often reminded his students that confronting evil is not a curse, but a necessary trial for spiritual evolution. Every soul, he said, must one day meet the adversary, not in mythic realms, but within the battlefield of its own heart. This encounter is not meant to destroy us, but to awaken what is divine within us. For it is through resistance that the spirit gains strength, through suffering that wisdom is born. The devil in human form, then, becomes both a danger and a teacher. He forces us to see what we would rather ignore, the unguarded places of our soul where pride, fear, and desire still live. When we meet deception, we learn discernment. When we face cruelty, we awaken compassion. When we feel our faith shaken, we learn to anchor it, not in dogma, but in living experience. The adversary, as Steiner taught, becomes the sculptor of our higher nature. Suffering, in this light, is no longer meaningless. It is the refining fire that burns away illusion. The soul that passes through it consciously begins to radiate warmth, not the borrowed light of Lucifer, nor the cold glare of Ahriman, but the quiet glow of inner strength. Steiner called this the Christ light within, born from the union of truth and love. Thus, even the presence of evil serves the greater cosmic balance. Without it, humanity would remain innocent, but unfree. By facing darkness, we learn to choose the light. By enduring trials, we grow capable of compassion. Every hardship becomes an initiation, every shadow a mirror through which the soul rediscovers its divine origin. And so, we arrive at the final truth Steiner wished humanity to understand. Though evil may wear the face of man, light is the deeper reality. The devil's presence in human form is a test of sight, not to terrify us, but to awaken us. For when one begins to see with spiritual eyes, fear fades, and what once appeared as darkness is recognized as untransformed light, waiting to be redeemed by consciousness. Steiner urged his students to walk through the world not as judges, but as observers who understand. To see the cold intellect of Ahriman or the seductive light of Lucifer in another is to recognize the same tendencies within oneself. This recognition does not condemn, it liberates. Every time we act from compassion instead of calculation, from humility instead of pride, from truth instead of convenience, we weaken the adversary's hold on the world. To live awake in this age, to think with warmth, to feel with clarity, to will with love, is the modern form of spiritual courage. Steiner called it the path of conscious Christhood. the daily practice of balance between the forces that seek to divide us. It is not dramatic or loud. It is quiet, steady, luminous, the work of those who choose to transform rather than escape. So let this understanding not end as mere thought, but as a living impulse. Observe, awaken, and share the light you carry. For the more we see with open eyes and open hearts, the less room there is for darkness to hide. And if this message has stirred something within you, a memory of your higher purpose, then carry it forward. Subscribe, share, and walk beside others who seek truth with courage and love. Together, we form the circle of awareness that evil cannot enter.